All right.
All right, it's 3 o'clock. We've got offensive line coach Jay Guillermo with us. Scott Wyckoff, you lead us off.
Coach, coming into spring camp, what were your goals for this line? And so far, how have the guys been working to achieve those?
Yeah. I think the number one goal was just to kind of build some continuity within our unit. Lost a bunch of guys that have played a lot of football, and got some younger guys playing. And so the number one thing for me was building that continuity within our group and our unit, and just getting some guys some experience. Because that's a big thing with O line play is just you know sure the plays may be the same of what they have been, but whenever guys become savvier players, that they can get some things done right and not have to necessarily go by the book with everything, if that makes any sense. And so, those are just some of the big things, and they've done well, with our installs, and we're not super deep into our install yet. Got the first couple days, and then we'll kind of revisit everything that we did at the beginning, the first two practices. But I've been happy with them of how they retained some of the stuff from the season, and then being able to move forward with some of the younger guys at a little bit quicker pace than they did really their first time getting to hear it. Because we got a lot of guys that were plebes that are moving up into their second year, and excited to see what they can do and continue to develop those guys physically and mentally.
What does it mean for you as a coach to have the older guys for a full second season, coming in last year, starting with the spring, and now having had them through a full season?
Yeah, it's just them getting to hear, the same voice again. And, really the springtime is a huge time to really break everything down back to the basics, right? You have to, because you've got younger guys this year, but I think even if you don't have to, you need to do that, because through the course of a season, you get into where we make tweaks every week, right? How we're going to block this, or things we're going to call this, or this and this and this. And so you lose a little bit of the base core. Why are we doing this? Why are we running this play? Where's the backs track on this play? And so getting to hammer that out for a second year and get back to those basics is huge. And and seeing the guys progress from last year, what we did through the season, and then things they needed to work on physically with their bodies with Coach Carizzi and the guys down in the weight room has been really good to see. And then going through our fourth quarter drills, and seeing guys progress through that, and how they got better from the first day of it to the last day, has been a lot of fun to see. And it's a really good group to coach. A lot of guys that want to be here, that want to work hard, that do work hard, and going to have a lot of fun with this group.
Not always the case, but the spring break ends up breaking up spring camp. Do you think that'll give the guys a little more of a hop in their step, having that week of anticipation, knowing they come back and what's expected of them?
Yeah, I think so. And they get to go through a long training period, where they come back in. We go to the bowl game. They've got a little bit smaller of a break, so then they come in and they're hitting the ground running, and they're training hard. And so not only from a mental just kind of refresh and reset, but also a physical reset. These guys went training hard into fourth quarters, into spring ball. Just giving their bodies some time to rest. And we had our first meeting here a little bit ago, and just kind of rehashing some of the things, just base things, and getting them back into it. I think they're excited to be here, and even things that we do during while they're gone, right? Like I give them a sheet, and it's, hey, send me one play a day, right? Just to kind of keep them involved, and keep them thinking about football. Now, not necessarily, hey, you got to sit here for an hour and think about it. It's just, hey, take you 2 minutes, write down this play, send me a picture of it, and we'll talk about it whenever we get back. And so the guys did great with that. It's funny. You can always tell who the early risers are, because I got some of those plays at 7 in the morning. I got some at 11 at night. So, but I told them I had to get one every day, or they were going to get punished whenever they got back. And I can promise you, nobody missed any one of them. So they're excited and they're ready to go.
Thanks, Coach.
Absolutely.
Mike, James.
So, Coach, when you came in last year, you inherited a group that had maybe 3 or 4 years of kind of that foundation of option football, and you started building on, introducing new ideas on top of that. But as time goes on, the foundation of what those guys, the guys you're working with, is going to change a little bit because they won't have the same background. It's going to be more of what you've kind of created, from the beginning. How do you mold a line? You know, with when that foundation is changing, you make sure that they're still good foundationally what they can do well without adding too much onto them.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of the hard part of my job, is saying, okay, with what we are doing, what do I need to spend most of my time on? Right. And there's only so much time we have in a day and in a practice to get to work all of it. And like I said, that's one of the most difficult things that I have to do as a line coach because we do so many different things. Right. And, getting under center and running your under center triple, running your midline and your veer, it's a different demeanor, right, than coming off the ball and running inside zone. And so I think for me, it, you can the way that I start the install always starts with the option from and just how Coach Cronick sets up his install. So from a mental standpoint, like those things aren't going to be lost because we're still doing it, right? And they still have to know what an option count is and they know all of these things. And so there's a lot of those that day one install we're going to get anyways from a mental standpoint. The physical standpoint is the hardest. And, everything that we do starting out day one is we're undershoots, we're with big heavy bags, and we're coming off the ball, because to me, a lot of guys in high school have a background in some of the gun, zone, gap scheme things, right? What's different in today's football is, all right, let's go veer release, right? Let's work our towel scoop drill. Let's work these things. And so it goes into what are we going to do in that day? And then kind of mold that into the season. And how do I need to work what we need to work? What do we not do very well the day before? What do we need to fix? And so it definitely helped a ton, right? That the guys that were just here had a huge background in under center triple. But it's we do so much and we're in the gun so much that you got to work at both. And I don't know if there's a really good answer to that other than we're just going to work at both, and those guys are just going to have to figure it out. And it takes a little bit longer for them to figure it out, right? Because at the end of the day, we've got about three offenses meshed in one. And so whereas Coach Cronick has done such a good job of packaging everything to where mentally, that's what we worry about the most is can the O-line handle it mentally, right? And how can we package these things and how can we call these things to make it make sense to them? Then from a physical standpoint, all right, how am I going to marry the two if I can? Well, if I can't, how much time do we need to work on it? So it's definitely a work in progress, but it's something that, once again, day one, I mean, we're coming out and we're in the shoots, and that's what we're going to do, right? Because I think you can slow them down, right? You can get them to sort their way through some things that like you would do in the gun, right? Now you're still coming off the ball, it's still physical play, don't get me wrong, but you can always slow them down. We got to get them going first, right? And get them firing off the ball. And what demeanor do you have to play with from the jump if we say, hey, we're going to go run veer right now, right? We're going to go run midline right now. And then you can always slow them down because the principles within a block are very similar, right? It's about, for one, horizontal leverage, putting yourself in between the ball carrier and the ball or in the defender. And two, it's pad level, the vertical leverage battle, right? And so working on those two things, number one, and then with hands and different body positions may change a little bit, but it's O-line play is O-line play, and there's some base core fundamentals that you can work. It's just more of the demeanor and how you do said things going day in and day out. So I know that was a long answer to your question, but
No, it was a great answer, actually, and it kind of dovetails into the next thing I was going to ask. So you mentioned about understanding the option counts and just the mental side of the game. A lot of that falls on the tackles. which happens to be the least experienced unit of the line right now. How do you work on getting that recognition from such a young group so early? Plus, working on the communication across the line to make sure that everyone's operating it as a unit.
Yeah, I mean, walkthroughs, a lot more of interactive work in the meeting room. And I've never been one just as a coach to get up there and just talk, right? I know as a player, I hated just sitting there and staring at a screen and listening to a lecture, but even more so now, getting guys up, hey, point this out, here's the still picture of a play. All right, give me 1, 2, and 3, right? Who's the dive? Who's the pitch? Who are we blocking? Where's the ball going? Just different things like that to make it more interactive in the meeting room, to where it's slowed down. They're not about to go hit someone in a play, right? They can slow it down there to where, okay, now we get over and we're on the practice field. And let's walk through it, right? And then let's take it into individual drills, and let's work these things in that, and then take it to the game. So a lot of it does fall on the tackles. And I think once again, it's trying to be more patient with them and make sure that I don't take anything for granted as a coach and assume that they may know this or remember this. Once again, just letting the spring be a time where we're just going to break it all back down and let's take it down to the base level. If if I was teaching a middle school kid how to run our offense, and then grow from there. And I think they've done a fine job with it thus far. Now we've been practicing in pajamas. We get the pads put on tomorrow, and we'll see how much that sticks. It's a little bit easier whenever you're going against other O linemen that are playing scout team D line, but we'll see how it goes. And too, I've got to say, the guys that we do have back have taken a huge amount of pride in helping those young kids. I mean, with Ben Purvis not being able to go, with Hope Smith not being able to go in practice, Coach Carizzi has set it up to where they're in there doing their weights and all of that in the first half of practice. Well, really, whenever we're getting in our team periods, they're out there with us, and those guys are coaching just as hard as I am. And even the guys that are just gotten done, right, that are just out there, like Connor McMahon's been out of practice, Javon Bouton's been out of practice. Brett Self's been out of practice, and those guys, they're done, right? But they have been out at practice, and they said, "Hey, coach, I just want to kind of hang around and watch." And it's like, okay, and I'll see, a guy will come off the sidelines and talk to them, but even the guys that aren't going, like Hoke and Ben understand the full picture of our plays, and they understand what everyone is supposed to do, and that's what's made them good players. And so they can help guys, right? So you got myself, you got Coach Lorndine. Well, then you got these older guys that aren't able to practice, but they're just doing what, I'm doing. They're coaching, they're doing everything they can, and they're helping them. And, at times it can be, I'm out there and I'm intense, and a kid might be embarrassed to come ask me a question, because coach has been over it 3, 4, 5 times, but let me go ask Ben, let me go ask Purvis, let me go ask Hoke, and they can answer it. And so that's been another huge help to me, just seeing this start of spring ball is, man, those guys are out there and they're doing everything that they can to help our team. And that's been really impressive as well.
All right. Thanks, Coach. Still I got, Scott.
Mm-hmm.
Wags.
Hey, Jay, good to see you.
Yes, sir. You too.
So based on the fact that you have to replace 3 starters, and based on the fact that you're going to be relying on some players that don't have a lot of game experience, if not any, one would say the offensive line could be a question mark. Do you feel that you've got some answer, some things you need to get answered?
Oh, absolutely. And you always do. Every year, you got guys moving on, and there's question marks. And so for sure, quite honestly, that's been our motto through the whole, since we got back, something we've talked about is proving ourselves as a unit, right? We were able to do that a little bit last year and prove that people can trust us and trust how we're going to play and the effort that we're going to bring, the intensity we're going to bring, and all of those things. But that's a little bit up in the air. And so that is something that I've challenged those guys with, is saying, hey, man, every day we have to prove who we are, right? And we have to prove that we can be trusted. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is if your O-line stinks, right? It doesn't matter how good your backs are, your wideouts are, if your O-line stinks. And, at times I probably put an unfair amount of pressure on those guys, right? But I think they thrive in that. I know they did last year. And now this is a new group, this is a new unit. But I think these guys thrive on that. And, man, I've really just even through, getting through workouts and then getting into fourth quarters and those first couple of days, man, really leaned on those guys hard and grinded on them hard, and they've responded well. And they're hungry to prove that they can play. And, they embrace, the hard things that we're doing, and they embrace the hard coaching. And they take it and they learn from it and they grow. And I've been really happy with just what their mindset has been going through the first 2 days of spring, and once again getting back today. And they were hungry and ready to go. But certainly there is. But at the end of the day, that's why we go and we play the game, and that's why we practice. And they've done a good job with it thus far.
Based on the depth chart at the end of last season, there's no tackles back that were on the depth chart. Can you kind of update us on what's going on at left and right tackle? And who's
So right now, we've got left tackle. We got Sean Crowley. He's a plebe, and he's done a good job, man. Really developed his body. He came in at about 255, 260 pounds. Kid's up to 298 pounds right now. Did a awesome job with coach. And this too, I can say this with all these guys, because the way that Coach Carizzi has helped these guys. Now, these guys have had to make decisions, right, to change their bodies in ways that they needed to. And there's still some room for growth there. But, like Coach Carizzi has done a fantastic job through the short amount of time he's had at the end of the spring, or, into the season, going into the winter and then into the spring. But, he's about 200 and, like I said, like 298 right now. He's there going with the first group at left tackle. Hanson Colley has moved over from defensive line. He's going with the second group at left tackle. Hanson kind of knew throughout the season, I think, that was going to be the move with him. And maybe because I would pick on him about every week and tell him that he just needed to go ahead and come over. But he's done that, and that kid's done a great job. For a kid that's not really played O-line before, and he's going to help us one day. He's going to help us. And very, very self-aware kid. And from the first time I met with Hanson, man, that kid was like, look, I'm not one of these people that's going to cry and moan about moving O-line from D-line. I want to do this. And this is I'm going to work hard at it. And so he's done a good job, gained some weight. And then at right tackle, we got Connor Heater. He's going with the first group right now. Heater's up to about 275, 280-ish. I think he's actually – I'll see his weight today after lifting, but I think he was around 280 whenever he left. Heater's done a good job. Plebe that was able to develop. And then after him, he got injured the other day, but Drew Fontana is a kid that, he came in at 245 pounds, and he's at about, he was at 245 after plebe summer, and he's at about 280 pounds right now. And so he's done a good job. Like I said, got a little banged up with his shoulder the other day at practice, towards the end of practice, but he's there working with that as well. Zarian Sims is working out at tackle. He's been an interior guy, moved him out, done it, first time playing tackle, really getting to understand what it is. But, he's done a really nice job, going and kind of understanding how interior offensive line is different than tackle, right? You got a lot more time and a lot more space, but he's done a nice job with that, just kind of learning it. So those are the main ones right now that are getting the majority of the reps, at tackle. With there in the third group, We got Eric Clark that's working on one side, and then Harry Spencer that's working at the other. Harry's really an interior guy, just having to kind of bump out right now until we get some guys in. But and Harry does a great job. Harry's one of the best kids that we have on this football team, and works his tail off and smart. But he's an interior offensive lineman. He's playing tackle because he knows what to do. And he's a smart kid. And but that's kind of where we're at right now. So a lot of youth, but the fortunate thing is that these are kids that I kind of get to mold into what I want them. And once again, they've done a pretty nice job throughout the offseason of gaining the necessary weight. Still got to get, stronger in some places. But, man, some of these guys, like, they look different than they looked like whenever they got here. And Coach Carizzi and those guys have done a fantastic job in the offseason. It's such a short period of time.
How much are Ben Purvis and Hoke Smith going to be able to practice this spring?
Well, we're probably going to end up holding Ben for the whole spring. He may get some towards the end. Really just depends on how his meniscus and everything's healing up. I know who Ben Purvis is. I know what he knows. I know how he plays. He's a guy that's played a good bit of football, really going into his third year of playing a lot of ball. I kind of know what I got from him. And so I don't want to press him to get back too fast. Hoke will be able to get back towards the end, do some stuff. He, had some stuff done with his elbow, and then he's got a foot issue that he did in the first drive of Army Navy. And I don't know how many people know this, like, Hoke Smith didn't practice a single practice at all whatsoever before he played Oklahoma. Those 2 weeks that we had, he didn't practice whatsoever. He was in a boot for all of it. He couldn't even walk around. And then I told him, I said, look, man, here's the deal. I'm going to take you out at warmups. We're going to see how you do. He did everything. He's like, Coach, I can go. And I said, all right, well, I'm probably going to pull you at some point in time. Don't be worried to tell me that you can't go. And I tried to pull him at one point in time, and he did not like that too much. He wanted to play. And I respect that from him. And so, he's been dealing with that foot issue as well. And it's getting better. I mean, it's gotten a lot better. Shouldn't be anything that he has to deal with a long time. It's just something that takes a long time for it to heal. So he should be back and get to do a little bit of something, I think, towards the end of spring. And Ben may get back and get to do some individual drills and all of that. But he'll be out for most of it. But, the good thing is that with all these young guys, man, they're going to have to play, and they're going to get a lot of reps and a lot of teaching moments. Right. And that's what's going to be so great is it's not like we're going to go through the spring and, they're not going to get a ton of reps or things like that, or eyes aren't on them. Right. Like they're the ones that's going, and they're going to get to see what they can do. And we're going to get to see what they can do as a coaching staff. And that's all the interior guys, not just the tackles. Right. That's a guy like Fernando Baker, a guy like Carmelo Michelle, a guy like Jake Polito. I mean, Jake Polito, he's our starting center through the spring. And, he's going to have to figure it out. Right. And he's done, I was talking with Coach Lorndine this afternoon, like, that kid mentally has come so far in such a short amount of time. And it's almost like the light just came off for him. And it's not like he's perfect, but, man, where he was at in the middle of the season to where he's at now, I mean, is pretty significant. And that goes into the time he has put into it and the care that he has for it. But guys like that, they're going with the first group, and they're guys that are going to get a shot to see what they can do. And then they're going to be able to help us, down the line. And so that's where it's kind of a blessing in disguise, that we do have some guys out, because we know what those other guys are, and giving these guys a time to go and play and prove themselves.
So who's going at right guard, left guard in place of Purvis? Is it Grayson Crawford?
Yep. So Grayson's going at left, and then Cam Nichols is going at right with the first group.
So Cam Nichols was the guy that was in the starting lineup and then lost that job to Hoke Smith. What did you tell Cam he needed to work on, and how has he improved?
Yeah. For him, him, it's everything above the shoulders. He there were times where he would get a little overwhelmed, and you know that's just the things that he has done. Is from the time we got back, he knew, okay, can I start meeting with you? And obviously, we're out on the road recruiting, and so we did as much as we could. But I mean, that kid started watching tape, right? He started helping the other guys and teach the other guys, because you get into a meeting room and he can tell you what to do, right? And then it'll be, well, we got out there, and he'd go a little crazy at times, and you're like, hey man, you know what to do, just calm down. And I think a lot of it was experience for him, and getting to experience big games, and having to make those split second decisions, in real time. And so he's done a really good job of just letting it slow down and say, hey man, we're out of the season, we're into spring, let's take it back down to the base level, let's truly learn why we're doing what we're doing, right? Not just how to do it. And you can see the light bulb go off for him a little bit, with things that, once again, you get into the season and it's, you got one way that you're tweaking how it's blocked a little bit, and then you go back to the normal way, and he's like, well, I thought we were still doing it this or this, and things can get a little bit muddy. And just taking him and really getting to sit down and take more time with each play and each concept that we're doing, I think's really helped him, because you kind of see the aha moment of, that's why we did that, and that's why we're doing this, and that's why we may have changed that. And so for him, mentally was a big thing that he had to really get through, and I think he's starting to do that. Now, once again, we're about to put our pads on, and we'll see how that is tomorrow, right? But whenever we're out there running around in helmets, I mean, he's done a good job. And once again, getting with the younger guys and be able to talk them through it, I think helps him, and say, okay, yeah, I thought I knew that, but they're asking me questions that I'd never thought of before, and so all of those things involved. I mean, he's done a good job, and I'm excited to get to see him progress through the spring.
All right, I'll pass it back to anyone else who wants to ask questions.
We've got about 7 minutes left, so let's do one question each. Scott Wyckoff.
Coach, we saw it last season with seniors that not only played together for 4 years at the Naval Academy, but also spent a year together at Naps. Again, this season, a group of offensive linemen in that situation. What does that mean to have guys like that who have played together going on a fifth year?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, because as you play with a guy beside you, it almost like you truly become five as one, right? With all five of you. But, let's say you got a center that's played with a left guard, like you two are on the same wavelength, and he knows what you're thinking, what he's thinking, so on and so forth. And so it gets to a point where, kind of like I was talking about earlier, whenever you got a guy that just becomes a savvy player and understands what's going on, it gets to a point where you almost, like, all these calls and everything we make, you're making it for each other. You don't even have to make it at times. And you know what the other guy's thinking. So whenever you can have guys that have played with somebody that long, it helps, right? It helps because you know what it feels like in combinations, their verbiage, right, that they use on some things. You know what they're seeing. And so that definitely helps. And, as much as you can get that, the better. And then from a brotherhood aspect, like, man, I've been with this guy for 5 years, going on 5 years, going on 4 years, whatever it may be. Like, I can trust that guy because we've been through a ton together. May it been our plebe year, may it been our Naps year, may it been, our sophomore year, whatever it is. Like, you've been in the fire with those guys. And so then there's trust there. And from that trust and that love and that respect, it's like, all right, well, I'm going to push him to be better so he can push me to be better, and so all of those things from a whole aspect, I mean, it just helps. And, and that's what, fortunately, in today's day and age of college football, we get, we get guys that see that, each other in that light and care for each other like that. And that's why the Academy is such a great place, man.
Thanks.
Got about 4.5 minutes left. Mike James.
I'm good, Scott. Thanks.
Wags.
Well, lastly, I'll just ask you about how Grayson Crawford's developing, getting a lot of reps, as you mentioned, with the ones.
Yeah, no, Grayson's improved the first couple days. Did some things from a hip mobility standpoint. In the off season, needed to see him do a little bit better. His nickname for us was the crab because he kind of moved sideways like a crab because he was a little stiff. And but he's done some good things and really worked hard in the weight room. And so I'm excited to see him go through spring and see what he can do. See how he can help us, man, because he's a smart kid, cares. I mean, you watch him through fourth quarters. He was one of the most consistent ones that we had. Not that he always looked the best, but man, you want to talk about a kid that's freaking fighting to get better every day, like that kid's awesome. And so I'm excited to see how he progresses through the spring physically, from a technique and fundamental standpoint. And because mentally, he does a good job mentally. I think understands what's going on. I know he understands what's going on and understands why we do what we do. And, they're just the 201 and 301 level, from where's the press point of the ball, what's the backs read, different things like that, to be able to truly understand not just what we're doing up front with us five, but, where the tight end's doing, where the slot's doing, what's the back's doing, how to different motions influence a defense, right? And I'm excited to see what he's able to do because he's proven that in the offseason he's done what he needed to do to this point and continue to work on after that.
Thanks a lot, Jay. We really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Appreciate y'all.
Thanks a lot, Coach. Thanks, everybody.
All right. See y'all. Thanks, guys.